Can I ask you a few questions?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. First question. What's a goal you have?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? That's a great question. What's
Soccer?
soccer? That's a good goal. What's something you really like doing?
Playing?
Playing? Yeah, I love playing. What's something you feel like you're really good at?
Drawing?
Drawing. Oh, you are an incredible artist, among the world's best. And last question. What do you want to do when you grow up? What's a job you'd be really good at, do you think?
Scooping food.
Scooping poop? Like dog poop? Oh, that is something we have you do sometimes. I meant more like a career, like when you grow up, what's a job you think you'd want to do? I had a conversation with a student the other day. They reached out and they were basically like, how do you lead in the midst of everything that's going on right now? How do you act as a leader when much of the infrastructure that was in place that kind of helped you lead, much of those support systems have been removed or have just changed drastically? And they were asking this not because they saw me and they're like, hey, you're just killing it right now in the leadership game. But they were asking because they knew these were probably the same questions I was asking myself. Like, how do I lead right now when I'm not in my classroom? How do I lead right now when all of these things that I had kind of planned on doing are no longer able to happen? Having big goals and dreams are important. Whether it's to be a poop scooper, to be a professional baseball player, to be a doctor, to be an engineer, these are all really important dreams and goals. But on a day-to-day basis, it's even more important, I think, to have daily goals and to break those bigger goals down into small goals, these baby steps. There's a book I really like called Getting Things Done. The book's about productivity, but one of the major takeaways from the book for me was about how our brains work. In short, it basically says this, that even if we write, let's say we made a daily journal or a daily list of the things we wanted to accomplish, and one of those lists was go to the grocery store. Even though on that list it would be one item, the way our brain perceives that one item is actually, in some cases, like hundreds of different steps. Because going to the grocery store isn't just going to the grocery store. In some cases, it's making a list of the things you want to buy. In some cases, it's taking an inventory of what you already have, so then you can make the list of the things you want to buy. And then it's grabbing your car keys. Then it's walking out to your car and opening your car door. Subconsciously, our brain knows all of these things that we have to do. And even though it's one item on the list, sometimes our brain's like, whoa, that is huge. And our brain is constantly doing this. It's taking these really big goals and these really big ideas and these really big things we want to accomplish. And in many cases, it's subconsciously breaking them down into these individual steps that we often take for granted. Sometimes it's the reason we feel overwhelmed or anxious or just kind of burdened by what's going on in our life. Even though it might feel like, oh, I have to just do this, this, and this, our brain's like, no, man, that is like 100 different things that you have to do. So in talking to this student, I challenge them to do this, to take these big goals and maybe big dreams that you have and break them down into small, daily digestible chunks. I actually don't like the term digestible chunks. We're not gonna say digestible chunk. It's taking these big goals and turning them into daily action items and breaking them down as small as possible. One of the challenges from the book Getting Things Done was to take those big goals and to turn them into like itemized lists, to take that out of your brain's subconscious and put it into action items that you can accomplish. It takes the burden and the anxiety of that big picture like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do, or there's so little to do, or what do I even do? And it turns them into action items. So the question is, how do you lead in a time like this? And this is a question this student and I talked about for a while. And what we sort of came up with was these three things. Number one, pick a goal each day, even if it's super small to accomplish. Having one goal each day gives you a sense of purpose. I know for me, especially when I'm constantly at home, it's really easy to kind of just coast or just be in neutral and to have a whole day go by where I'm like, where did today go? But giving myself at least one goal to accomplish every day and really listing out what that goal is, if it's mentally, if it's putting it in my phone, creating a checklist. But having one goal each day that we accomplish, I think is super important for just our sense of self and also a sense of purpose. I think strong leaders have purpose. Number two is connecting with others. I think the strongest leaders right now are those who are bringing other people in alongside them to join in a purpose or goal. I think in addition to having that one daily goal for yourself, having a goal that other people share in, that you break down into action items is super important. If it's for a leadership class and it's for your team, I think having a big picture goal, hey, we want to accomplish this next week, or we want to accomplish this by the end of this week, meeting with your team and then breaking that down into action items, being the person who calls your team together, being the person who, once you are together and says, hey, before we get off this call, let's break down these items into who's doing what so we can check in. Or being the person at the end of the call who says, thank you, blank, for organizing this call, and blank, thank you for taking this action item, and blank, thank you for taking this action item. Let's check back in on Tuesday. I think it's so important to be assertive and to communicate with your team right now. A leader doesn't necessarily need to be the person who says, hey, do this, do that. In many cases, it's the person who just regularly communicates and is the glue who keeps a team together. But right now, especially when we're not able to be together, I think it's essential for leaders to be the people who say, hey, join me in doing this. Let's work together. What do you need to be successful? I think the leader is the person who connects people right now. It is time for number 3, magic. I think number 3 was the sticking point for the student that I was chatting with, that the idea of letting go, the idea of resting, the idea of being okay right now with that one daily goal, with connecting with people, and kind of maybe putting on pause some of those longer term goals. I think we have this mantra in our culture where you have to be productive constantly, and if you do anything short of being productive and sleeping like 2 hours a night, that you're a failure. Right now, more than any time that I've been alive, there's just this general sense of anxiety and stress and uncertainty, and that can be really taxing on us as individuals. It can be really taxing emotionally, physically, and resting is really important. It's something I really struggle with because I do constantly want to have this drive to be productive. I think the best leaders right now are the ones who are able to prioritize the things that need to be done and put on hold the things that can wait. I think at some point we will be back to normal and have the ability to maybe operate at the same level we were before. But I also think someday when we're back to this normal, operating at the same level, maybe we'll be able to look at that and say, hey, that wasn't healthy, our perspective before, and that going 110 miles an hour constantly isn't a pace that's sustainable. I think the leaders who are thriving right now are those who identify what needs to be done each day and do those things and then rest. The leaders who are thriving right now are those who are connecting with people around them and say, hey, let's work on this together, and trusting that even though we're not together, you're gonna get done what you said you're gonna get done, and you're gonna get done what you said you're gonna get done, and I'm gonna follow through on the thing that I'm supposed to do. That collaboration right now, more than ever, involves trust and trusting other people to do their part as leaders as well. And finally, just letting go and being okay that things are gonna be different, and that some of those big goals we had probably are gonna look entirely different now, and that's okay. And that's often difficult, and sometimes that's the most difficult part of this, is letting go, resting, and being okay with the fact that things are different right now. My conversation with the student was hopefully encouraging for them, because it was for me. The idea that you have to accomplish everything at once, and our brain's telling us, hey, you're not doing enough and you need to do more and you're not enough. That part of your brain, or I'll just speak to my brain, that says, hey, you're not doing enough right now. The stuff you are doing is not nearly the caliber it used to be. You could be doing more. Why don't you be productive? You can get ahead of other people right now. That part of my brain, I'm trying to squish. Let's just put off to the side, because that's not healthy. It's not a healthy approach. Not right now, and it's not a healthy approach ever. Set realistic goals for yourself. Each of us are capable of doing different things at different levels, and it's okay if that level right now looks different than it did before.